Welcome to our exploration of how formative-specific assessment rubrics and formal formative assessment processes are reshaping teaching and learning in higher education. In this video, we'll dive into a recent study conducted at the University of Hull, which focused on a large-scale international student-taught master's module. The research set out to evaluate the impact of tailored rubrics on student assessment literacy and engagement, especially for those new to the UK's academic culture. Let's begin by understanding why assessment rubrics matter and how they can transform the learning experience for postgraduate students from diverse backgrounds. Assessment rubrics are more than just grading tools, they're essential for developing students' understanding of academic expectations. Traditionally, rubrics have been used for summative assessments, but their role in formative assessment is growing. Research shows that well-designed rubrics can improve learning, foster assessment literacy, and make grading more transparent and fair. For international students who may be unfamiliar with UK academic standards, rubrics provide clarity and reduce anxiety. However, rubrics can also be restrictive if not thoughtfully designed, potentially limiting creativity or increasing stress. Balancing structure and flexibility is key. Rubric is essentially a grid that outlines the criteria for an assignment and describes levels of quality from excellent to poor. Effective rubrics have three main features: clear evaluation criteria, detailed quality definitions, and a consistent grading strategy. Importantly, rubrics should use student-friendly language and minimize subjective interpretation. In this study, the team added another layer, ensuring rubrics are transparent and inclusive, making them accessible to students from various educational backgrounds. This approach helps demystify what success looks like in UK postgraduate education. What sets this research apart is its dual innovation. First, the creation of a formative-specific rubric used midway through the module, distinct from the summative rubric used at the end. Second, the introduction of a fixed, formal formative assessment process with a set submission deadline. This structured approach ensures consistency in feedback and grading, even with a large teaching team. By focusing on measurable learning outcomes and clear deadlines, the process supports both students and staff in navigating the complexities of assessment in a multicultural, international context. Study took place at a northern UK university, focusing on a postgraduate education module with around 230 students, mostly international, primarily from West Africa. The module combined large lectures with smaller workshops and relied heavily on digital platforms for materials, submissions, and feedback. Assignments included a 3,000-word summative essay and a 750-word formative mini-critique, each with its own rubric. This structure aimed to help students build the skills needed for success in the UK system, especially those unfamiliar with formative feedback. Assessment literacy goes beyond knowing how to complete assignments. It involves understanding the principles, purposes, and practices of assessment, interpreting requirements, using criteria to guide learning, and acting on feedback. For many international students, this is a new concept. The study emphasized helping students grasp these ideas, encouraging them to engage with rubrics before, during, and after their assignment. By doing so, students could better understand what was expected and how to improve, fostering deeper learning and self-regulation. For 2022, formative assessments in the module were informal, with no fixed deadlines and inconsistent student engagement. As the teaching team grew, concerns arose about marking consistency and clarity, especially for new staff. International students unfamiliar with UK academic norms and the hidden curriculum often struggled to understand expectations. The need for standardized, inclusive, and clear feedback became apparent, leading to the development of the formative-specific rubric and formalized assessment process. Formative-specific rubric was crafted to provide high-quality developmental feedback at the module's midpoint. Unlike summative rubrics, it didn't expect students to have mastered all learning outcomes yet. Its primary aim was to clarify expectations and support students' growth while also standardizing feedback across a large teaching team. The rubric focused on 5 key areas: critique, criticality, referencing, narrative flow, and argumentation. This targeted approach helps students understand where to focus their efforts for improvement. Boost engagement, the team introduced a formal formative assessment with a fixed submission deadline. Students were required to submit a 750-word mini-critique online at the module's midpoint. This process was fully integrated into teaching, with clear guidance and explanation of the rubric provided beforehand. The result: full participation, 100% of students engaged with the formative assessment, a significant improvement over previous years. Feedback was returned within 2 weeks, ensuring timely support for student development. The larger marking team, ensuring consistency in grading and feedback, became crucial. The summative rubric provided clear, explicit criteria for staff, reducing subjective interpretation and supporting new team members. Staff were involved in refining the rubric, ensuring buy-in and understanding. The summative rubric mirrored the formative one in focus areas but included specific grading criteria. This approach aimed to make grading fairer and more transparent for students, while also supporting staff in their assessment roles. Survey results revealed that most students were accustomed to traditional assessment methods, such as essays and formal exams, with limited experience of formative feedback. Many had never received feedback before studying in the UK, only grades. The introduction of formative-specific rubrics and structured feedback was a new and valuable experience for them. Students reported that the rubrics helped clarify expectations and guided their writing, both before and after starting assignments. Majority of students engaged with the formative rubric at multiple stages, before starting, during, and after completing their assignments. About 73% reviewed the rubric before submission, and only a small minority did not consult it at all. This pattern suggests that students found the rubric a useful reference point throughout their writing process, even without explicit instructions on how to use it. The feedback from students highlighted the rubric's role in helping them understand what was expected and how to improve. And asked about the usefulness of the formative rubric, most students responded positively. They felt it clarified what was needed to improve for the summative assignment and provided actionable guidance. Some students, however, expressed disappointment at not receiving a grade for formative work, reflecting their previous educational experiences where all assessments were graded. This highlights the importance of clearly communicating the purpose of formative assessment and managing expectations, especially for international students. Nearly all students reviewed the summative rubric alongside their feedback and grades. They found it helpful in understanding where they performed well and where they needed to improve. Most comments were positive, emphasizing the rubric's role in highlighting strengths and weaknesses. However, a third of students still found the rubric unclear in explaining how their grade was determined, indicating a need for further refinement and possibly more student involvement in rubric design. Study concludes that formative-specific rubrics and formal formative assessment processes significantly enhance students' assessment literacy and engagement, especially for international cohorts. Clear, structured feedback helps demystify academic expectations and support student success. However, the research also highlights the need for ongoing refinement, student involvement in rubric development, and clear communication about the purposes of formative assessment. These practices can be adapted for broader use, including with undergraduate students, to foster inclusive, effective assessment cultures in higher education.